one of the things that really stood out in what you're suggesting is, so many times we burden ourselves that we have to know all the answers, right? Many times the answer is not within us. We just have to get that, like talk to people, and maybe the answer come from outside many times. So I think having that open mindset that you can explore beyond you, it's fascinating, and thank you for walking us through that. Let's tease a bit on the mindset of basically this ideology a bit, right? Say I'm a worker in an organization, right? So obviously, I'm trained to appreciate the culture. I'm trained to appreciate the status quo. And if if you think what culture is, it's primarily understanding all the no's and working around it to get anything done. So now, like
Can I, can
considering,
I, can I, can I stop you for a second?
yes, absolutely.
Why is that the culture? Like, who wants to work someplace where the culture is a no and the culture is a box? Like, if you come to Seawall here, right, and you meet all the people that work here, like, the concept of a box does not exist, right? Like, you are not a valued teammate if you're not thinking outside of it, if you're not pushing the envelope on what's possible, if you are not reimagining some component of it, right? So, I mean, I think if I worked at some place where the culture was a no, I'd want to leave there immediately. I think that we've got to, as leaders of organizations, we have to create these cultures where ingenuity and creativity are rewarded and important and critical to the growth and success of what we're doing.
Right. No, I think that's a fascinating point. So say you're a leader, right? So now if you think about, say, linemen in your organization, right? So say anyone is set out to set up a building, and building has to follow a code. It has to follow a set of rules, right? So there is not too much room for innovation, not too much room for creativity to go beyond what you want to achieve. Now, if you are one of those linemen listening to this conversation, right, and who is inundated with this idea of no, you cannot be too creative, or you cannot be do this, and you really want to, like, I'm curious, how do you as a leader think about those individuals? uh, how would they stay creative and yet follow the status quo?
So look, at an organization is an incredible thing, done well, and its heart, it's an enormous family. And families are complicated, right? Right. Speaking from experience, amazing and complicated. Our opportunity, right, is to understand that all kinds of different people need to exist within an ecosystem. So we have people here at Seawall that like can't think outside of the box. And I'm going to generalize, but we have this incredible team of accountants. And I love the fact that they are in a box and that like they dot every I and cross every T, and that they are critical to, I'm going to say me, because we have other creative people too, but like my ability to dream huge, you know? It's important that like we understand that we need each other, the in the box thinkers and the out of the box thinkers, right? I, with all my heart, love those people that can think inside the box because I'm incapable of doing it. And if like we had an organization of all outside the box thinkers, we'd have been out of business a long time ago, right? And the in the box thinkers love the fact that they've got a lot of like creative people that they've surrounded themselves with that are going to push innovation and challenge the status quo and reimagine things. And it's that marriage of the two, right? It's not everybody that needs to innovate. But the line worker, as you described, right? The in the box thinker needs to understand their role and the importance of what they do on a daily basis. That they like the idea that the organization is being creative and pushing the envelope on what's possible. They like the idea that they're helping to make it work in a way that makes financial sense and that like doesn't derail the company. But aligning those two things, I think, is the most important piece. So that, I mean, you can come spend a day at any of our organizations that we run here, I'm positive that you're going to get that same vibe from everybody, whether they're in the box on the line or they're like out in the community thinking big and dreaming creatively. I think it comes down to love, right? It is a word that we have been trained to use sparingly. It is growing up as a teenager. We believed that we called love the L bomb, right? It was this like atomic thing that if you used, it was like you were somewhat of an outcast, right? And I've had a fundamental shift in that. I think love drives like everything that we do. And I think that when the people that we're blessed enough to work with, the in the box thinkers and the out of box thinkers and everybody in between, all feel loved and appreciated and connected and driven towards the same end goal, when those purposes are completely aligned, it really doesn't matter what you do within the organization. You're all kind of moving forward in the same direction.
Awesome. So let's spend a few minutes on the book. Why write this book?
So I have been blessed to work all over the world, and I do a lot of public speaking. And every time that I'd get off the stage after any kind of speech, I'd have all of these people come and approach me and ask me to explain more about these principles that I have been talking to you about today. Because to them, it felt like a foreign language. It wasn't a way of addressing business that they were used to. It felt somewhat out of control, as I think you alluded to. And so, they'd ask me these questions, fascinated. They were curious. And so I'd go home and I'd take notes, and the notes turned into paragraphs, and the paragraphs turned into chapters. And then like one day I was like, you know what, like there's a book here. Right. And, I had seen and learned too much throughout my life to not at least attempt to pass some of those lessons off to as many people as I could. And for me, the book was the format to do that, to be able to translate and pass these incredible life lessons that I've learned in the trenches off to as many people as I can possibly touch. And it's been a really fascinating process, right? When I first started, I had a friend who had written a book. He said, "Hey, Thibault, this is going to take you 5 years." And I was like, "You're crazy. Like nothing takes me 5 years, right?" And he was like, "No, this is gonna take you every bit of 5 years." And I said I'd be done in like 6 months. And to the day, Vishal, it took 5 years. It is a long process. It is a vulnerable process. The first time I wrote it, another friend had read it and basically ripped it up and said, "This is so superficial. You haven't let anybody into your heart. And you've barely scratched the surface. Go back, dig into who you are as a human being, and let that shine throughout the entire book. And then maybe it's something worth sharing." And so, that was I'm a little bit more of an introverted person. And that was a complicated process for me, but a really eye-opening one as I kind of dove into this exploration of like what makes me tick and what are the important lessons that I wanted to share along the way. I think that it sounds like you've read some of it, but I really wrote it in a way where it's just a series of stories, right? Like it's not this like academic lecture of this is how you do this. It's, 21 or 22 chapters, and every chapter is a different story of somewhere else in the world where like I pass on these aha moments, right? Where like you as a reader, you may or may not get the point that I'm trying to make. You might just read a beautiful story. But I think if you weave them all together, in each one of the sections emerges every one of these principles that I've felt so important as we bring ideas to life.